What is up, RotoGrinders? Officially, we've hit the back end. We're in double digits. It is Week 10 NFL Pick 6 show. As usual, two of the absolute best in the business. John Daigle established the run. Rich Hribar, sharp football analysis, the worksheet. I was too busy with basketball stuff today. Monster slate. I was unable to digest either one of your the content for either one of you guys. So I'm going to catch it fresh. I try to get to get a jump on it before the show, but going to hear it for the first time, as well as everybody else listening on in. Hribar, welcome to this is officially the back end, right? We're in the back end.
Back nine is that you would refer to it as golf, right? People love when they cross analogy sports, don't they?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's 18 holes, 18 weeks. Like it's right there. It's on a tee, but so to say, to put it a certain way. But yeah, you guys aren't counting though. I'm sure you're not burnt out in any way. You're still hitting your stride. Would you confirm, Daigle? We still hitting our stride as far as pumping out content for the 2024 season?
It's just nice to have bye weeks again. Not putting them in our lives last week came out of nowhere. We'll get back to that in Thanksgiving week, which is somehow right around the corner. I have my first Friendsgiving already on Saturday. Like I start brining the turkey tomorrow. I don't know where that came from, but it's all right around the corner for us.
You're the designated turkey guy? It's on you for the Friendsgiving? Do you nominate yourself? Or that's a role you're solid.
I don't know if I nominate myself, but if you're from Texas, one, it's in your blood. You should nominate me. And two, yeah, you just automatically get labeled that guy who cooks the meat. So Friendsgiving, I do turkeys. We do around Christmas. We also do like a taco night Friendsgiving where I take on the carne asada for everyone. And it all starts with the brining process. It's like a 3-day process.
Can you give like one tip that most people don't know as far as how to master a turkey? Is there something you can give, like a Daigle family recipe?
Stuff the skin. Like there's a way to peel back the skin before you put the turkey in the oven. Stuff it with chopped pieces, like a stick of butter, to make sure the meat stays juicy as opposed to drying out. And then also take it out every hour and a half to 2 hours and just keep covering it with rosemary and crushed garlic. Just rub it all around because that's going to make sure the crispy skin also gives off like a herb and garlic sensation.
So we tout ourselves as the best DFS/movie podcast. Now the best DFS/movie and cooking. Like there's no other podcast out there like this. Were you taking notes, Rich? Are you the turkey guy in the household? Is that even on the table for you?
No. We travel. We usually don't host for Thanksgiving, but as the years have gone, we've lost like family around us. So we actually just got it down to like basically my wife's side of the family. We go to her mom's and that's it.
Understood. By the way, shout out to
we used to do 3 at one point.
Oh my God. 3 in the
That's
same day? No, I guess
we used to do 3, like her parents, then my parents are divorced, so we used to have to double dip. So it'd be 3 different places. And props to my mother-in-law for coming around, but she course corrected on the turkey thing forever. She wouldn't like use like any temperature gauge for her meats at all. And like, dude, turkey, like you overcook a turkey, it's terrible. It's like it's over, like chicken, right? Like it's overcooked bird is the worst. And she finally started like temperature gauging her turkeys. They've been much improved like the last like several years. So it's been better over there. But my mom used to always have the best one, and not just because it's like I'm her son and it's like your mom's cooking, but she always certifiably had the best of the 3.
And mother-in-law, it's probably hard to tell. It's a tricky thing to tell your mother-in-law that the turkey's not great. I don't know how that works.
I'd always be like, but we used to go there first for like the noon, like the early kick game. And I'd just be like, oh, I have to eat 2 more places. I won't, I'm just saving room.
You got a ration. We mentioned the buys. Yeah, Cleveland, Vegas, Seattle, Green Bay on a buy. Probably the best game of the week, possibly the best game of the week on a Thursday, which is kind of a bummer. Cincinnati and Baltimore. We have another Germany game. Well, I should say another Europe game. This one is in Germany. We're sending our best, the Giants and Carolina. We do get Detroit and Houston on the FanDuel slate for Sunday night, but it's just a 10-gamer. It's just a 10-gamer on the main slate for DK. And again, FanDuel does include that Detroit Houston game. John, you said our 3 teams. Of course, if this is your first time here, it's week 10. Where have you been? But we talk about we focus on 3 games. We break it down from all the possible angles. We kind of run it back and talk about our favorite players in the remaining games that we've not yet discussed. I did want to give a shout out, by the way, to Dan Bach on the hats, on the merch. Myself and Rich, we
where's your
finally
hat,
made
Daigle?
it. It only took like 7 years, whatever it is. We finally have hats for the DFS Pick Six show. Daigle, I'm sure, I imagine this would be awkward if you didn't. You got one, I assume. It's just not on you.
Yeah, I mean, I got other gear on, sure, but yeah, I have a hat as well.
That's
Don't
the
worry.
wrong show.
It's a different show, but there you go. Shout out to the Smallcast.
I support our friends across the globe.
Understood. All right. Very first game, John. We're talking about San Fran. San Fran at Tampa. 51 is the biggest total on the board. At least that's what it was earlier today. And the next one, we'll talk about Minnesota and Jacksonville, so around 47. So one game in the 50s. We're expecting the arrival, the anticipation of CMC to play in this football game. What are our thoughts? I guess do you want to start there? I guess we should start there as far as CMC and San Francisco as a whole coming off the bye.
Definitely start with the 49er side. That's the interesting one, just because of what's happening to this Bucs defense. Also, this game was always glued to our top three to talk about this week. I don't trust the Colts, so I removed that game personally. We'll definitely have some individual plays when we get to the positions to discuss through. And then it seems like we could also, the Eagles, I don't trust the Cowboys as well. And then there was another offense, I think it's the Saints, that I also don't trust. Again, positional plays. So we just boiled it down to what maybe could be the most competitive games, the highest scoring totals. Here we are. But this one, 50.5 points, both offenses just humming along. This is one I trust, and particularly the 49er side. One, sites. You can tell me on FanDuel, actually. I just looked at DraftKings, made a placeholder before I got on, but at least with Christian McCaffrey on DK there, priced him accordingly, just bumped him right up to Alvin Kamara, kept Jordan Mason also high. Jordan Mason practiced in full, so we do have that decision point this week. But really, it's about getting pieces of this 49ers offense, because although they don't have Brandon Ayuk, we expect them to get Juwan Jennings back, practicing in full, coming out of their bye. And that's a great note, since he did not practice at all in 2 weeks prior. The last time we saw Juwan Jennings, remember, 40% target share, ended the lives of the Rams secondary as the overall wide receiver 2, I believe it was that week. But more importantly, that's what this Bucs defense is doing, because it wasn't just 290 yards and 3 touchdowns on Monday night. Patrick Mahomes' first top 12 performance in nearly a full calendar year that the Bucs permitted, but also the last 4 of their last 5 quarterbacks faced now at least 3 touchdowns to them and 24 fantasy points. Just the last 3 games to stellar talent, yes, Lamar Jackson, Kirk Cousins, Patrick Mahomes, but 12 touchdowns and 0 picks in that time too. The Bucs secondary just continues giving it up weekly and getting injured as well. So going straight to Brock Purdy and the team's pass catchers, regardless of not having Ayuk, seems to be the starting point on this slate.
Yeah, FanDuel not messing around. 9-4 for CMC, the second most expensive running back right behind Saquon. You had to bump him up at least 1K for that leap. That reverse hop was just spectacular. The greatest. I don't know how necessary it was, but it looked amazing. Great stuff there from Saquon. All right. Also, by the way, you mentioned Jennings. He's projecting to hit. It's early, as always. I say first time I'll say it. I won't say it throughout the podcast. But Wednesday night, we recorded on Wednesday night. Jennings is coming in pretty hot. Of course, some news can trickle down later on, but we're seeing him hit at least some of the stuff I've ran before the show, one of the more popular receivers. Rich, how are you feeling about CMC? How much does he get as far as the backfield? I think he's more viable on DK as opposed to 9-4 on FanDuel.
Yeah, because you can just pay for Saquon at that point.
Yeah.
If you're going that high, I think you just pay for Saquon on FanDuel. You have a little more leeway on DraftKings, because I think they will ease him in a little bit. And obviously Mason was so good, right? I always thought coming into this season, like the ancillary backfield pieces were going to play more this year, and they would alleviate CMC. Remember, they were just all hurt last year. And I don't think the plan was ever to give CMC the raw number of touches that he ended up getting last year. And then we saw maybe the ramifications that had, because the 49ers are good. Like, they are in a position to give to rest him more, like in fourth quarters. Right? I'm not talking about rest him, but like, load management. And Jordan Mason's been good enough where I do think we will see some of that load management the rest of the season. I do think CMC will be a guy that plays in high leverage spots, especially in the red zone, because this is where the 49ers have had all of their issues this year. I mean, you look at it right now, they are 28th in the league in red zone conversion rate after being number 1 in the NFL last year. There's going to be regression there. They get to the red zone a ton. I mean, they're number 6 in the NFL in rated drives that get to the red zone. So maybe a guy like CMC helps them boost their touchdown conversion rate. I do think he'll play high leverage spots. But I do think that we won't see like 25 touches, especially out of the gate. I don't think we will. So it's definitely more of a boost. I think the biggest winner probably is Brock Purdy, right? Like, because you just get another weapon for Brock Purdy. Daigle laid out like a great matchup. Even goes even further. They've allowed a QB1 score in 6 of their past 7 games. The only guy that didn't get there was Spencer Rattler in his first career start against them. So this is a defense we've been targeting all season long. I mean, you go back to last year. When Todd Bowles faced them, I mean, he threw a lot at Brock Purdy and they got absolutely eviscerated by the blitz in that game. So we'll see if he is that same approach, but definitely the 49ers pieces. There's a little bit more of trying to parse out what we want to do with CMC coming back, because we are getting Jennings back. You know, obviously Kittle has gotten this boost because CMC had been out the whole year. And then we have Deebo Samuel, who still is carrying these like massive splits without Brandon Ayuk. And when we go back to week 8 before they went on bye, I mean, he had a game where he could have had maybe 150, 170 total yards in that game. He had a 65-yard touchdown called back. Brock Purdy missed him on a wide open dig route that was open. And then he had a beautifully set up screen that he kind of maybe dropped. It wasn't a perfect throw, but left a lot on the table. But he has run over 200 routes with Brandon Ayuk on the field and has a 36% target per route rate, over 4 yards per out run on that sample. Like, that's obviously not sustainable big picture, but anytime Deebo Samuel's basically played without Brandon Ayuk, he's absolutely been a smash. So we've got a lot of moving parts here to kind of diagnose. Like, my initial thoughts are to just play Purdy and kind of figure it out as we go along the way. But I think you can really kind of pick your choice here if you have your own favorite piece.
The Tampa side, is there still some meat on that on the Cade Otton bone? Right, he's 5'5" on DK. I think he's 6'4" on FanDuel. The targets have been there. He's broken some slates a couple times, and I think he broke a showdown slate, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Rich, what do you have as far as the Bucs potential run backs?
I mean, listen, give Liam Cohen some credit. I mean, these past 2 weeks with no wide receivers, I mean, they've been game. I mean, they've scored over 24 points now in 6 straight games. They keep finding a way to at least put up production. So I think we give them the benefit of the doubt, even against a Spags defense, right? Like, you know, the Chiefs have been a really good defense. So we at least got to put some note there. It's just kind of getting spread out outside of K-Dot. And I am someone that likes to at least put a little pin in guys that play the 49ers with Fred Warner in tight ends. And they faced, you know, Travis Kelce had 17 yards against them. Trey McBride, 6 for 53. Jake Ferguson, only 23 yards. Like, this is a team going back since they've had, you know, apex Fred Warner. Probably even you go back further, you know, when they always had good middle linebackers, Navarro Bowman and Patrick Willis. Like, they are a team that does give tight ends troubles because they play the middle of the field so well. So I definitely want to kind of stick a pin in that. Otton's been playing so well that I don't think you completely fade him. Like, you're not going to bench him in season longs or anything, but this is a week I do want to operate maybe with a little bit of trepidation with him. The 49ers have had a week 9 bye. I think this is the 3rd year in a row, and they've come out like every one of those seasons and gone on like massive win streaks. So this could be like start of the foundation of like where this all comes together with getting CMC back, where we start to see the 49ers results that we expected early in the season.
The last time Otton was on the slate as chalk a couple weeks ago too. You mentioned it, Dean, meat on the bone, just because he was the minimum 3K. And that also was what led me to playing Jasicki last week, because as the ETR Slack got a kick out of, I noted to everyone that therapy taught me I can control what I can control, and I can control not getting completely effed by a 3K tight end in back-to-back games.
Yeah, the 3K tight end, it's been really, really good of late. You mentioned, Gesicki absolutely smashing. Did the what is it? The giddy? No. What's the name of the dance?
The gritty.
It's his
the gritty.
And chalk defenses this year are going nuts. I cannot remember a year where the chalk defense got a touchdown every week.
Every time.
It's and if you play him, of course, they're going to get like a 2 or something like that. But yeah, that's just how that goes sometimes. If not Otton for Tampa, John, like, Are we excited about anybody for Tampa, especially when you consider the price? So it's kind of still a mess there with the backfield. Nothing really excites me for Tampa. How about yourself?
Rich already explained it. In a 1-game sample without Evans and Jalen McMillan and Chris Godwin, it was Raheem Jarrett who led them in routes run. But the problem with Raheem Jarrett, Trey Palmer, although Palmer, we knew about the signal for the matchup, the Chiefs allowing the fewest points per game to receivers from out wide. That's where we assumed Palmer would run the most routes for the team after McMillan got ruled out. So that one was an easy one to fade. But so far, Ryan Miller, I know, gets in the box score, and he has been targeted on over 30% of his routes these last 2 weeks, but it's just guys that you don't ultimately want to get to. You don't trust because of the volume, the production, the ball being spread out. Not only that, but it continues to be a conundrum in their backfield because a 3-headed committee, although Rachaad White continues offering a floor, gets there with that carry inside the 10-yard line this past game, it's still 3 guys being used. And we don't know the rhyme or reason outside of Rachaad White being the pass catching back. Bucky Irving's still their best running back, but he's still second on the team in touches behind White these last 3 weeks. So it's a conundrum right now for fantasy there.
We got anything else here as far as this game, as far as San Fran and Tampa? Or I guess we're moving on, right? I think we're moving on. Yes. All right. Minnesota at Jacksonville. 47 is the total. Jacksonville getting 4. Lawrence is dealing with a shoulder. I assume he's going to play as of right now. But just sort of note that, put it in your back pocket. Rich, I'll let you open this up here. Minnesota at Jacksonville. I assume Minnesota, that side's a little bit more appealing for you.
Yeah, a little bit. You look at the Jaguars, and they are allowing the second most pass plays or 20 or more yards in the NFL. Guess who leads the league in pass plays for 20 or more yards? That's an offense. The Minnesota Vikings. So we're getting this Jaguars. They're so bad in EPA as a defense that they're 40 points worse than the next closest team, which is the Carolina Panthers, as a pass defense. Like, this isn't just an astro. Every year we get to this point, and there's like this one defense that we just know, like every week, like you're just like, well, who's this team playing, right? And we end up with, and the Jaguars have become that Huckleberry this year. Like, you're just like, every pass game that they face, you were just dialed in to them. And it's really cool because we know what to do with the Vikings, right? Like, we know that, yeah, they got TJ Hawkinson back. And if you want to chase a touchdown with TJ Hawkinson at 4-7 on DraftKings, I have no problem with it, with the way the Jags have played defense. He only ran a route on 60% of the dropbacks. You expect that to go up. It's still, a little bit thinner of a play, but we can just jam in Justin Jefferson, right? Like, we can easily just do this. I don't know if the Jaguars, because we've seen when they face these defenses that have these alpha wide receivers, they actually have dialed back the rate of man coverage that they played. They did that again last week, but it doesn't matter what you do against the Vikings. Kevin O'Connell is so dialed in on getting Justin Jefferson the football, and it doesn't always happen, right? Like, we take a lot of this for granted. Like, sometimes when you have one of these wide receivers and it takes them 3 quarters to get a target or to get going, the Vikings have a clear plan to get Justin Jefferson the football, like, immediately in games, and it basically just sets the tone for their entire offense. So I have no problem if you can get to a guy. I think if I had my choice of one payout player, it's him or Saquon. Like, I keep going back and forth. Like, I don't, it's really hard to get to both, but Justin Jefferson has just been so dialed in this season. He has 6 or more catches in 6 straight games. His worst game is, was a game that he was 92 yards, right? Like, that's like his worst game of the year without a touchdown. Like, it's his lowest scoring game is like 15 point some PPR points. You know what you're getting. It's worth paying for. Jaguars have been absolutely smoked by wide receiver ones the entire year. So I start there and maybe just start building backwards.
We have a projection right now, raw point projection and receivers for DK. Jefferson's number 1, and the next guy is 5 points behind him as a median raw point projection. That is a monster distance from 1 to 2. You just don't see that. I know it's a shorter, only 10 games, but that's pretty wild. And I also know a lot of the best receivers are just hurt at this point or not playing. That's just how that goes.
That Rams Dolphins game being on Monday night is a MFer, man. And I wish that game was on the slate.
I wish that was on the slate. I wish that Cincinnati and Baltimore was on the slate. That looks like it's gonna be a lot of fun on Thursday, but the slate is the slate. That's what we kind of got to deal with here. Yeah,
you don't wish Johnson Panthers was on the slate.
I mean, I wish somebody else would like throw a few.
I'd kill for Tyrone Tracy right now on this slate.
Tyrone Tracy sounds awesome.
That's a good point. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah, Tracy versus Carolina. What is the number on that? Maybe we should ladder that up. By the way, speaking of, you talk about it every single week as far as Gibbs and the stats you were given there, Rich. What's Jefferson's like longest completion? Maybe we should hit the over on that one because
His yardage lines are always wild. They're always set in like the high 80s or low 90s. So you never get any freebies with him.
But highest catch, like highest reception, if it's like 25 or so, I don't know. It's something.
Oh, yeah. It probably always is. It's probably right around like 23.5 or something every week. I've never really, not one I've explored, but you're definitely cashing a lot of those.
John, what do you got as far as Minnesota? And feel free to touch on jump over to Jacksonville as well.
The double stacks for Darnold is where it becomes a little bit of a problem. I think the best option to run with him is probably Aaron Jones and hope for the best. Aaron Jones can create his own yards and his own touchdowns, so that's fine. We've seen the last 3 weeks a 10% target share, including being involved this past game with T.J. Hawkinson back. But overall, it's still a bit of a mess. Like week 7 through 8, we saw 3 players behind Justin Jefferson: Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor, and Johnny Munt involved anywhere from 13 to 17% of the team's targets. This past week also with Hawkinson back, another 3 guys used Addison, Naylor, and Hawkinson himself between 11 and 14% of the team's targets. Is all these guys who were just getting in the way. So instead, that's why I just go to Aaron Jones with them. Not only can add the rushing touchdown here, but also Cam Akers gets involved behind him, but beyond that, no one else is coming for these touches. It's now 21 and 25 the past 2 games, 10 total touches by running backs behind him the last 3 weeks out of their bye. They do keep emphasizing that they do want to be mindful of Aaron Jones' weekly usage. And last week was the first time that we saw proof of that, but we can still lean into it and say that's the only time you've shown us proof of that, especially if we're trying to just soak up all the Vikings touchdowns. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do here, because on the other side of the ball, I don't think we really got any confidence from Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars offense in their first game without Christian Kirk. Maybe Gabe Davis comes back. Maybe Brian Thomas is at full health here against man coverage and the Vikings blitz scheme, Trevor Lawrence being under pressure. But it's exactly what we thought. Like Trevor Lawrence had to score 2 rushing touchdowns out of nowhere to get there, a 51% completion rate, 5.5 yards per attempt, Evan Ingram with 33% of the team's targets. So it's just exactly the layout that you thought would happen, minus Jaguars competing because 2 quarterback rushing scores and whatever the hell the reviewers were looking at with Saquon Barkley's fumble.
Where are we at, by the way? Year 4 for Lawrence. Like he's not like a bust, but we're not excited. Where are we at on Trevor Lawrence? What's the official grade?
He also has, maybe Rich has the exact numbers right now on him, but he also has many drops that his teammates have let him down in it, specifically end zone targets. Yeah.
I mean, for Lawrence, for me, it's always just the gap from, he makes plays that you see why he was drafted where he was, where he's got just the immense talent. And then they've always struggled, Lawrence in particular, with the freebies, right? Like the easy button stuff is where he's struggled with, which is weird, right? Because you're like, oh, you're doing all the things. It's like, these are easy plays to make, and they miss those, right? And that's been a constant for them, and it's been a bugaboo where he's probably going to have another head coach again. So another new system to kind of learn. The pieces are there. I mean, what are you going to do? They just signed him to a big, long contract. He's going to be one of those guys that's there, but it's like,
but you might have signed like the 20th best quarterback to the next 5 years or whatever. And that's,
that's the NFL. We don't have 20 good quarterbacks on the earth. So it's just the place that we're in. I think he's definitely somewhere in there, right? Like in the middle. Like,
yeah. I always think about NBA. Like,
I see a guy that will probably pop up and like win. There'll be individual seasons where I think everything comes together and you're like, oh shit, like this is rocking. And there'll be just things like we've had these last couple of years too.
I think the hair is skewed a little bit. People the hair somehow has manipulated the numbers. People get excited about the locks. If he had a different haircut, maybe people wouldn't like it. Who knows? But he definitely shows flashes. Can we get excited, Rich, about anybody on Jacksonville? I tried to make Parker Washington happen last week. Theoretically, it would benefit with Gabe Davis being out. He's currently, we're projecting him in on a Wednesday. Thomas is, speaking of showing flashes, he looks like they hit on Brian Thomas. But I don't want to mess with this running game of Bigsby and ETN. That seems like nonsense to me.
Yeah, I think the only thing, well, you look from a matchup stance too, Lawrence. He's 25th in completion rate against the blitz, 20th in yards per pass attempt. You're getting just a bunch of shell coverage zone blitzes, a lot of DBs blitzing with Brian Flores. The only guy that I think has like stable from like a floor stance is Evan Ingram, but how much ceiling do you get? And then obviously the guy that you would play for like your bring back, like hopeful, pop off week would be Brian Thomas Jr., right?
Yeah.
Just because we've seen like the displayed ceiling that he's had and the types of targets he can earn. But that's really it. Like, I'm not touching this backfield. ETN and like, you've seen like the stuff with Doug Peterson, like too, like if you go back to the London game, ETN fumbled and then they kind of ghosted him. Last week, he had a drop that led to an interception before the half, and then he played 3 snaps in the second half. Like, there's just no stability here with these guys. The offensive line is trash. It's a real tough spot to be excited about the Jaguars side.
Yeah. I tried to squeeze this game out, but I thought it was tough to get another game on here. And the Vikings
That's
pieces
dual-sided, yeah.
The Vikings pieces were excited enough. We were going to eventually talk about them anyways. Even the last play for Jacksonville last week was an end zone target to Dearness Johnson. Not even Tate Bigsby. Like, that's where the Jaguars offense is right now.
I think it kind of speaks to the slate that we've had, 2 games, 1 more in layaway. We got to talk about 3 games. It's just how that goes. That's the format of the show, but not terribly enthused about Jacksonville. I did not hear much enthusiasm on Tampa. We got 1 more we'll talk about in a second. I see TJ is producing us in chat saying, I'm actually shocked at the lack of value. Yeah, I mean, this is how it is right now.
We've done that. We do this on Wednesday. We're like a tip-off show, and then by the time we get to Friday, some dude's going to miss a practice, and like we're going to get some stuff to open up. It always happens.
And this is also why a chalk tight end has popped, not only for the volume, but optimally in lineups the past couple of weeks too, because the lack of value is now leading us to just be able to flex a tight end too.
I do think both sites, I do think some of the pricing has gotten a little aggressive.
Yeah. You sort of need those pieces to fall. If you were making lineups right now, and I think Rich, you're talking about, you said you're trying to make a shell pre-show, and obviously you're not going to stick to it. But I'm guessing you didn't like what you came up with.
I was definitely into looking at like players in a price zone, or I was like, ooh, I don't want to play this dude. Like, or like that area guys. Like that, I feel like, there's just not that complementary piece where like we're layering in the different guys at different price points. We have a couple guys that like I'm sure we'll talk about that we talked about, like, if you had your favorite 49ers, I do like Debo, we like Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones, like these are all guys you can play, but the lack of like real like underpriced value I think is lacking on this slate right now as it stands. Because like I go to like, I'm like, ooh, Josh Downs looks really good, and I'm like, oh, Josh Downs is 7-1 on DraftKings or FanDuel, and what is he on on DraftKings? 6.2. That's actually a fair price. I mean,
6.2 is good. Yeah,
6.2. I might as well just stick a pin in that. But it's like we were here last week where we started the show, and the chalk type we talked about like when it looked like Ladd McConkey was going to be chalk, right? And I'm like, that dude is not. He's not a chalk player. Like he can't be a chalk player,
right?
And like that's where we are right now with some guys.
He did get there when he had those 2 touchdowns, and I think he was kind of chalky. I know I didn't have him, and he scored a second touchdown, and I plummeted as far as how much I was currently winning. So somebody had McConkey.
But you know what I mean? Like when we did the show last week, he was, I think, sitting at like over 20%, before like things got shifted around. And it's like, that dude can't be a 20% player.
Agreed.
Herbert would have gone for 450 in that game too if the Browns could push back in any way at all.
It was
the disrespect to Herbert too, that he's basically the same price on DraftKings as Cooper Rush. Like,
it's unreal. Are they scared of the Titans or something? I do not get the pricing of that.
Or is it too much respect for Cooper Rush? Cooper Rush we'll talk about. Maybe, we probably won't. Well, maybe taking over for Dallas.
That's offering a lot of bad cheap guys.
How much is the Cooper Rush Jonathan Mingo stack? It's really cheap. Jerry Jones, he teased it too, right? Didn't he say like, hey, I'm going to draft somebody we love. We're going to trade for somebody we loved, on draft day. And, whatever. They gave up a 4th, which is might
but Chats, I think, got the last guy that probably everyone's. I imagine I didn't run optimals. I think you did,
Hopkins.
Dean, but I imagine Hopkins is the dude he's like the dude hitting in all of them because of the Monday night pricing and you know,
Mhm.
the Mahomes factor. I imagine he's the guy that's hitting in both.
He is the number one guy right now on DK and on the FanDuel stuff. He's second. You know who's first? Lad McConkey. I hope
And
that
listen,
holds.
anytime you can get that 45 to 65 yards without a full PPR, you got to do it.
All right. Last game, Jets, Arizona, pretty high, 46 in a dome. Arizona's a 1-point favorite here against the Jets. Let's let Rich. Do you want to start this off? Jets in Arizona.
I mean, I think this is going to be a theme for the show, unless Daigle's got some Cardinals he really likes.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely Jet side of stuff that's interests me.
Yeah.
I will say this. Let's start with Rodgers first. Because here's what's interesting, and now I was going under the hood and like this magic. So you're not scared of the Cardinals. Like you look at the Cardinals, they're 29th in pressure rate, they're dead last in success rate against the pass, and you're like, all right. But then I was thinking, like, I've tried to play a couple guys against the Cardinals, and it didn't work. And then I was looking at some things, and like the pocket passers we've tried to stream against them have all been flops. Jared Goff was QB 18. Brock Purdy was QB 19. Tua was QB 20. It's not that they like had bad, like real life games. They just didn't get there, you know, for fantasy football. They didn't have enough rushing. They've only allowed 3 QB1 scoring weeks this season, and they've all come with significant rushing production. Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels are the guys that got there against them. And I don't know if Rodgers really has that. And, you know, one of the mistakes I think I told you a couple weeks ago was when we were on Tua against the Cardinals at his price was like, you don't get that rushing component. And like, when you don't get those guys, like if Rodgers doesn't throw 3 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns, like you're really hurting. And that what makes it tough. I do think that both Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson are underpriced on this slate though. I'll take the Breece Hall side of this to see if Daigle wants to talk about the wide receivers here. I mean, Breece Hall's been close. He's still getting over 20 touches per game. What has happened? There's a clear gap to where you look at Breece Hall being a boomer bust asset this year. He's got 5 weeks where he's been an RB1 or higher, and then 4 where he's been the RB28 or lower. And it all comes down to his involvement in the passing game. In his 4 down weeks, his target shares are 12%, 8%, 12%, and 12%. And in the spike weeks, 21%, 27%, 15%, 18%, and 23%. When he's involved as a pass catcher, he gets there. When he's not, he doesn't. This would be a spot to incorporate him in, especially, you know, Allen Lazard. Like, this is still going to be a tight, condensed target tree. It's going to be Garrett Wilson, it's going to be Devontae Adams, and hopefully Breece Hall. The Cardinals are 24th in rushing points allowed to running backs. They're also 22nd in receiving points allowed to running backs. They've also allowed 9 touchdowns running backs. That's 22nd in the league, and they're 23rd in catches allowed per game. So this would be a spot, I think, where Breece Hall can hit some traction and get going here.
No, Mike Williams as well. If you missed it, he was traded off. Just worth noting, I suppose. Not that you're going to get there anyway. John, whatever you have as far as the Jets, by all means, go for it, and feel free to jump over to the Cardinals.
Was a good trade, in my opinion, though, for the Steelers. The poor man's version of the Stephon Diggs trade to Buffalo, and that he's kind of fits the mold of what they want to do with Russell Wilson. But yeah, I will defend or play devil's advocate, I should say, for the Aaron Rodgers doubles, if only because kind of like the Rams last week, or the Seahawks, although we poo-pooed that approach without DK Metcalf, at least you know where the ball goes if Aaron Rodgers dove has success here. Because the last 3 games since they acquired Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson have soaked up 72% of their targets. Like Breece Hall, yes, can get there, but if Breece Hall gets popular, we have the obvious leverage with Rodgers double stacks here. And not only that, but since they've acquired Adams, what the Cardinals did last week, because we thought they couldn't get pressure, and then the Bears, of course, have many issues, but they also just blitz the hell out of Caleb Williams on 42% of his dropbacks. But even Aaron Rodgers under pressure these last 3 games with Adams is averaging over 9 yards per attempt, the 5th best mark in the league. So he's gotten a little bit better, at least against a soft defense. So that's my case for Rodgers. If we happen to get there, don't even know if we will. Who we bring back is also gets a little more interesting, because these last 4 weeks under a new DC, new offensive coordinator, interim head coach, they still have been the Jets much leakier than the past under Robert Saleh. Even with George Pickens getting there a couple weeks ago, over 100 yards and a touchdown, and then Tank Dell this past game, 126 yards. I don't think it's leaky enough to where I will play Kyler Murray, but at least if we go back in those first couple of games against Josh Allen and Russell Wilson, both of those guys averaged over 8.5 yards per attempt. And the past 2 weeks, the entire reason you would play Kyler Murray, at least we saw Drake May add 10.5 rushing points on the ground, and CJ Stroud, as like Rome crumbles around him, still got the 59 rushing yards on Thursday night against the Jets. So that's the case for Kyler Murray too.
Is Murray running less this year? I feel like and I guess it sort of depends on the opponent. I'm just kind of looking at his game log. I know it's sort of like not the best route to go.
It's just that it's that offense as a whole. Like Rich talked about it with the defense and who they played. Dude, that offense week to week, it's just really hard to pinpoint. Like we know they want to keep getting James Conner involved. Last week, Conner should have had the goal line carry to go along with 100 yards. He suffered that in-game concussion, and then Trey Benson came in and soaked up the 1-yard carry. They even got down. Yeah, and then they got down. I think it was their opening possession. They got down to the goal line, and they give they give the carry to Trey McBride too. So it's just this is what the Cardinals do.
I mean, I am firmly I'm vehemently. I like Drew Petzing as a run game coordinator. I think what he's done with the run game in the past years has been great. And I think this passing game is completely uncreative. And the use of Marvin Harrison Jr. as a top down example of it. We finally saw 2 weeks ago when they played Miami. Supposedly, Kyler Murray met with Marvin Harrison Jr. and they talked about some of the things Marvin Harrison Jr. wanted to do, and they incorporated some of that stuff into the Miami game. I mean, he ran his highest rate of crossers, his highest rate of snaps in the slot that game against Miami, and then everything last week was back to what it was. After running 32% of his routes in the slot in week 8, he was back down to 20% last week. After a season low, 16% of his routes were go routes in week 8. He was up to 24% last week. In week 8, 43% of his targets were on crossing routes. That was the highest rate of the season. Last week, 20%. It's just the same stuff over and over. Like they just don't have a creative passing game. Kyler Murray's been pretty bad this year. This game got hammered early. The Cardinals opened as favorites, and I even kind of looked at it. I was like, this looks kind of fishy. I mean, they have won 3 games in a row, but the Cardinals have led for 28% of their snaps. That's the lowest rate of any team with a winning record. It's 20th in the league. They're kind of a fugazi record-wise team. I think I think the Jets are definitely, from a talent perspective, a lot better than the Cardinals, and it obviously got hammered. And now the Jets, I believe, are favored now by 1 or 1.5 now. But I just don't have a lot of confidence in this offense from a schematic stance, from a passing stance. And if you're not going to be able to really generate some shot plays, you're going to get smothered by this Jets defense, man. This is what they do. So I'm genuinely worried about the spot for Arizona. It would be a spot where I'd like Connor, but from where Connor's priced, he's another one of these guys we talked about. At his price, he has no tournament winning scores at this price. He hasn't been an RB1 since week 2. He gets you he's a really rock solid season long RB2, a volume based player, gets you real nice floor, but there's no tournament worthy scores in here.
Jets 2-9. I was looking. We don't talk about a defense, but I wonder how much the Jets defense is. I hear you talking to their 2-9. The Bears at 3K are coming a little bit more popular. So if you want to be a little bit different, maybe it's one route to go.
That's an injury report we have to wait on too. We got to see which guys the Bears have out there, because they're suffering cluster injuries right now.
Yeah, that seems to be the nature of football. Well, just in general, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff still out there up in the air. All right, anything else we should say as far as Arizona and the Jets?
I think even if you play Breece Hall, even if you play Aaron Rodgers, I think the run back is probably Trey McBride, and you cross your finger, just because at some point he's got to score a receiving touchdown. He can't just do it with a rushing touchdown.
He's the only guy that's been consistently getting used in the past game.
He's the only tight end running around on over 80% of dropbacks across the league. He's tied with Evan for a league high 24% target share. It's got to come at some point.
I didn't realize. Yeah, he has 0 receiving touchdowns, like you guys talk about. Yeah,
he's a fumble touchdown recovery for a touchdown. And then last week's he should have had one last week, but Kyler couldn't see over the line. I mean, he's wide open on that play action fake. But Kyler left the pocket. I don't think you could see him, and that's been a problem with Kyler his whole career, anyways, throwing over the middle of the field. So
McBride's going to run back a punt return next week, every possible way. He's going to play D line and have a pick 6 or something. But every possible way to get a touchdown, with the exception of actually catching one from his quarterback. All right, man, I'm hearing like not a lot of. You don't have to fake it, but there's not a lot of enthusiasm for the way the nature of this slate as of right now. We'll give our favorite plays position by position in just a second. Do want to mention?
Let's talk about the plays we like, and then we see what opens up.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just gonna figure them out as the week progresses. It is the busiest time of the year as far as the sports calendar. Means the perfect time to sign up for RG Combo. Get a limited time. Basketball just started. Basketball, $79.99 gets you all the combo, all the premium. That's just $5 more than NBA premium, football, baseball, basketball. I say baseball, no baseball. You know what I mean? UFC, PGA, everything with the exception of NASCAR. Check out the link in the description for that. I also want to shout out Splash. They are still running a lot of Survivor Revival tournaments as well as Pick'em and Fantasy Tier contests. Join the community splashsports.com/RotoGrinders. Promo code ROTO10 upon signing up for a $10 bonus. A limited time, you play $20 in quick picks entries, and you'll get an additional $10 bonus. And also want to encourage you guys to play in the RotoGrinders Listener League. The link should be in the description on the YouTube. You guys are watching us on YouTube, do hit that like button and subscribe. Turn on those notifications. You get yourself, if you win it, you get an entire month free of RotoGrinders Premium. Again, check the description for an invite to the contest when it goes live on Wednesday. All right, Rich. Some quarterbacks that we are excited about playing this week, assuming we find the salary to do so. What do you got?
Yeah, we talked about a couple. I mean, Purdy definitely is on my list. We talked about Darnold a little bit too, being kind of in that mid-range price zone. If you want to get to those guys, you can always come back and circle back on ownership. But I mean, I prefer both those guys to Rodgers for the reasons I laid out. If you have the salary, I mean, you can always pay for Jalen Hurts. Obviously, since they've come back from bye, he's second in the NFL in yards per pass attempt. He's fifth in completion rate. He's rolled off 20 or more fantasy points in all of those games. We did not see Devontae Smith practice today, but if he does end up playing, it'll be the first time since week 1 that all of AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, and Devontae Smith will have played as well. Against this Cowboys team that is just absolutely just getting flooded. They are now 31st in points allowed per drive. Only the Panthers are worse than the Cowboys. They allowed their last 3 games, 12.5 yards per pass attempt to Jared Goff, 10 to Brock Purdy, 9.2 to Kirk Cousins. At least it's getting better, I guess. It's trending. It's getting lower, but massively. I got one gross one, and I know like we can talk about the Herbert pricing too, but the one gross one is Caleb Williams. Who's been left for dead this week. We've seen he's got 2 top 6 scores. This is only like a large field. Offensive line play is obviously an issue for him, but he's facing a team that's 28th in pressure rate. We've seen him face 2 other teams that were at the bottom of the league in pressure rate, Jacksonville and Carolina. Those were 2 other spots that he hit. The Patriots just allowed 18 points to Mason Rudolph. They've allowed 15 or more fantasy points to 4 straight quarterbacks. They're 21st in yards or points allowed per pass attempt. This guy's been left for dead. Nobody's going to play him this week, and he still has guys that we like. So I'm at least going to see. It might be my F round and find out guy.
You got the narrative of Caleb versus May. Not exactly Daniels, but another rookie on rookie conversation. I'm sure it's going to be a talking point throughout the week. I did see Jalen Hurts. I thought he left practice, or maybe just something to monitor, right? You mentioned as far as Philadelphia
today, but he's okay.
So we're assuming he's fine. Yeah, and Brown was dinged last week. We're assuming he's fine as well.
He practiced today.
Have we seen a lower total for Philadelphia Dallas than 43? Like, when was the last time we've seen that?
Well, obviously, Dallas has I think they have the second lowest team total on the slate, right?
Who's got a lower one?
17.5.
The Titans, I think, have the lowest. I think they're like 15 something, right? The Titans are 15.25.
15.75. I'm seeing for the Titans.
Yeah, Titans have the lowest for sure. But I believe that they're the lowest, the second lowest. What are the Patriots? Patriots are 16.5, so they're third lowest.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time. Maybe I'm just forgetting, but I always think like Philadelphia, Dallas, total is going to be like 47, 48, 49. Obviously, Dak is out, which is.
And the Eagles defense has been really good for like a month running now, especially now that their 2 young cornerbacks have ever since they implemented like Cooper DeJean into the the starting slot role. Quinion Mitchell's been pretty good all year, but they've been pretty good like the last 6 games.
And Cooper Rush got that long-term extension just because of the wins. Like the peripherals around that, they were whatever, 5 touchdowns, 3 picks, 58% completion rate. Like it's
I mean, they have to at least play Trey Lance at some point because he's going to be a free agent, right? Or they just don't care.
I mean, I don't know. I feel bad for Jonathan Mingo. He didn't ask for this. He didn't
think there was a worse situation in Carolina, and
he didn't want to be joked about. He's just trying to live his life, man.
I mean, Cooper Rush is definitely going to drop back a lot more than he did because Daigle said they went 4-1 in 2022 when he started, but they were 31st in the NFL in drop back rate over that span because they were actually like a good team. That's not the case in this version.
Let's see, 2-year deal for Rush. This is a second of this 2 years. 2 years, $5 million. Yeah. What's the Lance deal? He's a free agent, like you said, at the end of the season, and we'll see where he goes. But
he is. Whereas,
why not?
The running game, they're complaining about Bucky Irving, Braylon Allen. Everyone was there in the 4th round, but not interested. They wanted Trey Lance. They wanted a 3rd-string quarterback instead.
Yeah. All right. John, you got quarterbacks for us? Who's left?
I actually did have Caleb Williams written down, but then I deleted it before the show. I think just because
that's probably a good sign.
Who do you pair him with?
I got to Rome Odunze in the positional plays. Okay. I think just because he was, I put 2 bullets into the 5.55 milli maker last week, and Caleb Williams doubles were one of my bullets with James Conner, and I think I'm still so pissed off about it that I just thought, you know what, I'm done with Caleb Williams forever because it was such a piss poor game from everybody. I can't get to DJ Moore personally. I think I would take Keenan Allen's targets, although what the hell does that even mean right now? I think I'd take Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze, but DJ Moore's at least a guy that showed you he does have a ceiling from time to time. We still got the Carolina game, 2 touchdowns and 100 yards. We can always look back to if we need to. So maybe that. Caleb Williams, whatever.
Narrative streak game, man. Like everyone was dragging him. Like he's been getting dragged on every show. Maybe he pops off. I haven't been on Caleb the last couple weeks. I know people were on him against Washington. I talked about not playing him that week, and last week we talked about not playing him. So maybe this is my week to feel everyone else's pain.
It's not fun. I can tell you, it doesn't feel good. The only other one I have, just because Justin Herbert, it's so cheap. It's so obvious the way their offense is going. Even last week, 250 of his 282 passing yards came in the first half. Again, he would have gone 450, 500 if the Browns did anything last week. Just so smooth out of their bye. I worry about the Titans pushing back. But if Mason Rudolph's under center, not Will Levis, you could always run it back with Calvin Ridley, 39%, 29% of the team's targets the last 2 games. So it's at least a little stack if you want to get there for cheap. And then the only other one on my list is Patrick Mahomes. It's expensive because the double stack is DeAndre Hopkins and Travis Kelce. Also, I don't even know if they're going to need to throw the ball because this is a rookie quarterback who, as we talked about last week, Bo Nix is not the type of guy who can succeed through the air at this stage of his career. Everyone's playing him in fantasy solely for the rushing. And 1, you can't run even as a quarterback against the Chiefs. Lamar did, but no one else has. And 2, the Chiefs had 83 plays this past game, so we're not getting 40 pass attempts most likely. But it's what Rich alluded to last week. It's that the Broncos hadn't been tested. And then they got tested by the Ravens, and guess what? The Ravens just did whatever the hell they wanted, especially through the air. Everyone was sitting so pretty until the afternoon games when Geno Smith on that final drive flipped the field and got the 300-yard bonus and ultimately took down Lamar and Zay Flowers stacks from winning tournaments. But Patrick Mahomes, I think, is also interesting in this game.
Bad job by me. I gave the big no wave to Geno. He was hitting everything, and I'm like, I can't play Geno.
I did too.
I didn't look. You probably know. Was he running different routes? JSN, did they finally unleash him?
He had a bunch of downfield stuff last week.
Okay. Finally happened.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I mean, 2 weeks ago when he didn't hit, he had his highest yards per out run in a game and his highest target share since week 2. He now is top 4 games in yards per out run are the 3 games DK Metcalf missed the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, and Metcalf expected back when they come back from bye, so JSN will probably be able to.
But it was nice to see like him actually get those opportunities and cash them in. Like that still counts or something.
It was great, except I didn't play him. I was annoyed because I didn't play him. I've been playing him, and I jumped off at the wrong time.
Well, that's why I'm mad about that Dolphins Rams game not being on this slate because, man, I think this is a big Tyreek Hill. Like this is the week for him. This
Really?
week.
Finally, this is the week for is it ladder? Or should we ladder it up? Have you looked into that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there's a reason why the wide receivers haven't gotten targeted when you look at Tua Sample. Obviously, they played the Bills twice, right? Who funnel targets inherently to running backs and tight ends. So I do think it's like the Rams are a team that have getting smoked on vertical targets to wide receivers. On throws 10 or more yards downfield, the Rams are 26th in completion rate. They're 29th in yards per pass attempt. They've allowed the most touchdowns. If we extend that out another 10 yards to throw 20 yards or more, these are only wide receiver targets too, stripped out everything else. 20 plus yards. They've allowed the most touchdowns in the NFL, 30th in completion rate. They're also 31st against play action passing. And, Tua is third most use of play action. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of brave gamers have really chased Tyreek and Waddle since Tua's came back. This is the first week I'm like legitimately like into these guys.
I like it. You got me sold. I'm definitely gonna be playing some player props. I've not looked into it just yet. Maybe they might need me out because it's a Monday night game. But yeah, I'm writing that down mentally. Okay, some running backs. John, who do we like as far as running backs we've not yet discussed?
I don't have a big pool at all. I just got a couple guys. One, and that's not like the past couple of weeks where I felt like I had 9 or 10 I had to parse from. Alvin Kamara, we can just keep playing him. I also am curious. I said the Saints wouldn't push back, but under a new head coach at home, maybe they do show a little bit of life. Maybe that's what that line is kind of suggesting too. Last time these two teams played, 26 touches, 119 yards, a touchdown from scrimmage. We saw without Kendry Miller and Jamal Williams. We'll get word on Jamal Williams later this week, but they just have nowhere else to go besides Taysom Hill in that backfield. So probably it's pretty easy to get to Kamara. Still shocking that he was only 25% rostered last week when he should have been like a 45-50% rostered player. Crazy. And then James Cook as well.
He was big for me to break even.
Yeah, dude, 25% was nuts. I couldn't believe I flipped that card and I didn't even have like an overweight position. I was shocked by the number. James Cook is the only one that stands out to me. They just put Joe Flacco in the worst possible spot against terrorizing pass rushes, like the guy who can't shed these players coming at him, whereas Anthony Richardson at least gave them life from a pocket. And just how well the Bills defense is playing right now, it seems like one where the Buffalo's offense can continue to do whatever they want, including leaning on James Cook. I understand that Ray Davis was involved last week, got their explosive touch, but now it's still the same. It's 6 touches in each of his last 3 games. James Cook handled 63% of the team's backfield touches, which is similar to what he's been handling since he returned from injury the last 3 games too. So just given the game script, I like James Cook too at low ownership.
Has anything been announced as far as quarterback for Indy? We're never assuming it's
he's Flacco. Flacco supposedly is going to start the rest of the year. I don't really believe that, but we'll see.
Right. He used the term rest of season.
Yeah. But like if they fall out, well, I suppose they want to speak optimistically. That's okay. I sort of agree with you. I think we're going to see Richardson at some point, most likely. But one more season long question for I know you guys do season long content. Is there a chance Kamara gets they've lost 7 straight. He's dealing with that broken hand. Is the hand still broken? Is he still playing? I know he's been playing with it for weeks. Is there a chance he gets pushed down as the season progresses? And
he got the extension.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Anytime we have speculation like this, it's tough. Like these guys want to play inherently, like for the most part. Like these guys want to play, and they, like Daigle said, like they've got interim head coach. Like this guy made me think he's going to Antonio Pierce this shit. The Riz, baby. That's what the kids are all saying. I mean, just imagine though, like we've got a 29-year-old running back out here getting a career high 35 touches on a 2-7 team against the Carolina Panthers. Like it's just like what we're down to. But it goes back to a couple weeks ago when Tampa Bay lost Godwin and Evans. We were like, well, we do know we have Otten. Like maybe he's just the answer. Yeah. It's pretty clear that the answer is just Kamara, right? Like the last 2 weeks he's been targeted. Listen to these numbers. He's been targeted on 52% and 41% of his routes the last 2 games.
Bonkers.
Like as a run, he's the running back 1 and the wide receiver 1 on the team. with no, we're assuming Chris Olave is going to be shut down here for at least the short term, if not the rest of the season. So I mean, he's just gonna he's just gonna get so many touches, and on a site like DraftKings too, it's full PPR. Like he didn't have a touchdown last week, and he had 215 yards. Yeah, I mean, he's just a really good. I think if you're playing cash games, I don't know how you just don't play him from that perspective. Like, exactly what you're getting.
Just looking at the receiving core for New Orleans, Tipton, Wilson, MVS. Oh my God.
It's not just,
dude. Ironically, Tipton's run the most Pats routes this season now on the Saints.
That's wild.
Less than a half yard per route run for.
It's also that like anyone that saw that game after the first 2 drives, like there was a real chance from that point that you knew the Saints weren't going to win because Derek Carr, good grief. That was a guy who, I don't know if it was the injury. I don't know if it was the absence by everyone, but that guy should not have been out there last week.
Michael
we got
Thomas
Taysom still. Taysom and Kamara. We can still play those dudes.
Yeah. Taysom is still pretty cheap too. And I guess we kind of need Jamal Williams to sit. I don't even
know if you need Jamal Williams out, man. So look at Taysom. So he played a season high 35 offensive snaps. He played 4 at quarterback, 7 at running back, 10 at tight end, 10 in the slot, and then 4 at wide receiver. Like they just like, dude, amazing. we need you to do a bunch of shit, man. Like you got to do like a bunch of stuff. He did. He had 5 targets in the passing game. He ran 5 times. Obviously, we know he has touchdown equity if they get near the goal line. He has to be on the board for tight ends, like again this week.
Why isn't there more players like him? It's just it feels like there should be more players that do what he does. They just don't make those kind of players. Or I guess
he plays special teams too, like just a hashtag good at the game guy.
Yeah,
listen, Dean, that's why he makes that big salary.
Yes, he did take a cut. He was never cut, right? Whatever he's getting, his salary he signed for like 3 years ago that everybody was kind of goofing on. And people thought, well, he has to be the quarterback because like you wouldn't pay, the 3rd string running back or 3rd string tight end this kind of salary. But hey, good for him.
I believe they just keep restructuring it, but restructuring it means you take on more immediately or you get it pushed back, like with the bonus. Either way, you get the money. A majority of the time, you do get it.
Anything else as far as running backs, Rich? In the same game, I think Bijan's pretty interesting. I'm still
I have some other guys
Bijan
too.
Game.
Yeah. I mean, Bijan Robinson, you can keep playing him. He's gone over 100 yards for scrimmage in 4 straight. Obviously, these are good players, so you're going to play them. Obviously, Saquon, if you can play Saquon, like I said, everyone's getting there against Dallas, so you can play him. I mean, what a season, what a year for the fantasy free agent running backs.
Derrick Henry.
Yeah,
Barkley,
Derrick Henry, Aaron
Mixon,
Jones, Joe Mixon.
Yep.
If you don't like Caleb Williams, you can play DeAndre Swift still. If you can, again, I mean, we got the Bears as significant home favorites. They're almost a full touchdown home favorite. He still had 22 of 27 backfield touches. You do have to worry about some goal line stuff with DeAndre Swift always, but he is capable of housing a long touchdown too. Patriots 26th in yards per carry allowed to running backs. They're 31st in rushing points allowed per game. They've allowed over 100 rushing yards to backfields in 7 straight games. So if I couldn't talk you into Caleb Williams, you have a very clear counter there. And then one other gross one, not on DraftKings, but FanDuel, I think you can get me to take a look, would be Najee Harris. Not DraftKings. FanDuel, we could do it in the half-point PPR. But, I mean, he's gone over 100 yards in 3 straight games. He's averaging 6 yards per carry over his past 3 games. He has an explosive run on 20% of his runs. And we continue to see Washington, as much as their pass rush has improved, they can't stop the run, man. Like they really struggle to stop the run. So, I mean, he would be kind of in play as well if you're looking to do something with like a Jaden Daniels or like some kind of stack in that game. Not on DraftKings, I don't think, but FanDuel, you can entertain it.
You mentioned FanDuel, Detroit, Houston. Any general thoughts on that game, Rich? They're not messing around with Nico. 8-8 for Colin. There's no discount at all as far as him coming back. We're assuming he's coming back, but he's essentially the same price as Amon-Ra. You have any leans in that game?
You should check to see what Jahmyr Gibbs' longest rush is. Definitely check that out.
And bet the over.
Definitely check that out. Make sure they haven't gone wild yet. But I think Amon-Ra is a really good play on FanDuel. I definitely like him just for the same reasons Devontae Adams got there last week. I had him right up. I mean, he's more of a 50-50 inside out player, but like when he goes into the slot, I mean, Houston's allowed the most touchdowns to slot wide receivers. We saw Devontae hit that slot fade against them last week. So I could see Amon-Ra really kind of cooking. The other wild card too in that game is Jameson Williams is coming back. And we have seen the wide receivers have 10 touchdowns outside of the red zone against the Texans this year. So, I mean, obviously he's a guy that is going to, like Daigle brought up the inverse correlation that Connor and, Ryan Newton always bet. He's only going to catch 2 or 3 passes, but one of them might be a 50-yarder.
I just wish we had Nico in that game because, man, that Texans offense without him has been just so brutal.
I mean, even when he comes back, we have to worry about now the state of the stuff. Like their offensive line is getting absolutely just ramsacked, and I don't even know. But
in particular on the FanDuel slate, like, I mean, what are the Lions going to do to him? Like dunk on him by 40 points.
Lions are 4K. I'm always curious what the defenses are. If you want to play some Lions defense against Houston, you can do that. Okay.
They're tough. I was looking at some FanDuel defensive pricing, and it was really, really rough.
Anything else we should note as far as RBs, or shall we jump and talk about receivers? I think we're good to receivers.
I mean, is there any? I mean, price-wise, the only guy I can see right now that stands as like a semi-value is in a terrible spot, right? It would be Rico Dowdle, right? Like,
we don't have value. We don't have value.
Like he's like the one guy you would say, because I mean, you look at 2 of the past 3 games, he's gotten over 2/3 of the touches, and in those games, he's been a top 10 PPR scorer. He's a good pass catcher, and I think that's kind of what you're looking at, especially on a site like DraftKings, because you're just looking for a little bit of value, but you're not excited.
Does Rush have some tendencies as far as dumping off to the running back? Anything we see there, or sample not big enough, or what? We don't know.
And like I said, it's tough to pull a lot from Cooper Rush's sample because he was just like a complete game manager, and they were able to get away with that because of the defense 2 years ago, and that's just not the case right now.
Plus, we don't know if, like, I know what they said. I don't believe them at all that Zeke is not coming back this week or at some point. Just because Jerry Jones loves Ezekiel Elliott. If it was Mike McCarthy's job, he would have cut him already, especially since, like, and by the way, I don't blame Zeke. Like, we should applaud him for just sleeping through meetings and not showing up because he's Zeke. Who cares? Like, he knows he's a legend in Dallas, especially under Jerry Jones. So why should he just show up to all this dumb shit? He's a veteran who's 2 years away from retiring, dude. He's kicking his feet up now. But
2 years away? He's going to play next year? What?
Jerry's going to pay him. Jerry's going to pay him to play next year. But yeah, I'm.
It worked out for Kareem Hunt. Just keep holding on.
I'm curious if the Rico Dowdle usage. Like, I want to like Rico Dowdle. I am constantly scared about Rico Dowdle's role.
Right. Yeah, I'm just looking from like 10,000 feet out right now. Like,
there's no value. Yeah, the slate is so stripped of value, at least right now on Wednesday.
You can get away with like the sleeping in meetings and showing up late shit if you're in peak athlete. Lawrence Taylor, you ever the Lawrence Taylor stories of Bill Parcells?
Oh yeah, listen, Charles Haley was the dude, like, ran himself out of so many teams, but everyone put up with it. If you're that good.
Yeah, well, Parcells was known as the coach that wouldn't let you get away with anything, but he got away with several things. But if you're that good and you can still get away with it, they let it slide.
That's the Jimmy Johnson thing as well. It's that a guy competing for special teams in the early 90s. Jimmy caught him sleeping through a team meeting, literally cut him the next day. And then they asked him, what happens if Troy Aikman sleeps through a meeting? He goes, I get him a pillow. This is pretty much that simple. If you're like,
you can't be Jermaine Burton. You can't be pulling this. You can't be.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
All right. We don't want to play Burton. Not available on this slate, but other receivers we may like. Daigle, what do you got for me?
Let's go to Rome Odunze. Hinted on him a little bit now, but he is getting a bit of a rookie bump. Tied DJ Moore in targets the past 2 weeks out of their bye, 28% and 19% of Chicago's targets, plus 2 carries. He seems to have the best rapport right now, connecting with Caleb Williams even on that deep 40-yard shot in the first half last week. So definitely like Rome Odunze. I'm going to mention Demario Douglas. And so I may play that game. Damn it. I hate myself so much. But Demario Douglas is going to happen at some point. Like, we now have only 2 games that he and Drake May have finished, and Douglas has earned a 22% and 24% target share. Because remember, a couple weeks ago, Drake May leaves early, and then in London, that's when Douglas had the illness or the flu, so he couldn't play the whole game at all. But when he's out there, he continues to be May's preferred target. And the last 2 games, Chicago's defense, because of these injuries that are stacking, we'll see on Jaquan Brisker and Montez Sweat in this game. But Jaden Daniels and Kyler Murray did combine for 8.2 yards per attempt. So a little bit of life there for offense on both sides of the ball. God damn it, I'm going to play that game. And then
Bears could be missing a couple dudes. I don't think Brisker's going to play.
Yeah.
And someone else is out, I think, for
Montez Sweat is trying to come back. And then nickelback Kyler Gordon.
Yeah.
He's been out with concussion. Not sure if he's going to make it either. So that game could be fun. Drake May's kind of proven that he's matchup proof. Cortland Sutton is another easy one to play. After that shenanigans on Thursday night against the Saints, where Sean Payton just throws Devon Vele and Troy Franklin at the wall and see what they can do. In the next 2 games, these past 2 weeks, Cortland Sutton, 29%, 30% of the team's targets, double-digit targets in both games. He seems to be getting there as their wide receiver 1 finally. And that's it for my list.
Yeah, I was on Sutton the last 2 weeks, but he's not making the cut for me this week. I don't think I'm going to chase him a 3rd week in a row. But one thing, that game did go to overtime last week, and Monday night games, teams that play overtime tend to play down. So maybe the Chiefs have a little bit of a spot where this game's closer than we think it is. Who else did we talked about Hopkins as being a value. We talked about a lot of guys I want to play, like Debo, Justin Jefferson, obviously. We talk Garrett Wilson, those guys. So we're looking for some cheaper guys to maybe play now. I brought up I still want to go back to Downs. I mean, I still think everything peripherally was there. You just didn't have the run out. I mean, he in targets 3 starts, he has target shares of 27%, 25%, and 33%. He's still I still want to chase that. He still has that upside. He's still been that good. And the slot wide receivers against the Bills have 52% of the wide receiver catches they've allowed. That's the 3rd highest rate in the league. So I still keeping that around. One cheap guy, I've nixed this guy in the past when he's come up, but I think and just because we're maybe looking for value to open up, but Noah Brown this week, I think I might finally be there on Noah Brown because he's had stability with the routes. My thing with Noah Brown, when people were getting on him when the targets were there, I was like, well, he only ran a route on 60% of the dropbacks. Like, that's not enough. Like, sure, the targets are there for 1 game. But now the past 2 games, he's been on the field for 81% and 76% of the dropbacks. So that's the first time he's had back-to-back weeks of over 3/4 of the team's routes. And what's interesting about this matchup against the Steelers is the Steelers have been really awesome against wide receiver 1s this season. They're actually number 2 in the NFL in points allowed to wide receiver 1s, but wide receiver 2s have had some big games against them. Jalen Tolbert, 7 for 87 and 1. Josh Downs, 8 for 82 and 1. Josh Reynolds, remember Josh Reynolds? He played football this year. He had 4 for 93 and against the Steelers. Darius Slayton, the last time we saw the Steelers, had 4 for 108. So maybe this is the spot to give Noah Brown a legitimate look.
So I told you I ran some optimals before the show. 3rd most popular receiver, Noah Brown. Just like as of right now, we know how this stuff changes. Hopkins, Jawan Jennings, 2nd most popular. Noah Brown, Ladd McConkey, and then Jefferson. Pay up for Jefferson. Downs you mentioned, and then Pop Douglas is the next one. So we're hitting on a lot of those guys, and there's not a lot of amazing value as things currently are. But Lamb, do we dare play Lamb? I guess that's sort of like an ownership thing. Certainly you'd rather play Jefferson, but if you can tell yourself a story, as far as Dallas, does anybody want to play Lamb over Jefferson? Probably not. It's really hard to play both. Basically impossible. Shouldn't say impossible.
I'll say, the shoulder injury is I think the worst part of it, right? Like if he re-aggravates the shoulder, because I don't mind the Cooper Rush. Obviously you want it to be Dak, but you go back to that span where Cooper Rush started, he had a 33% team target share. He was targeted on 32% of his routes with Cooper Rush in the game. And he averaged 2.4 yards per out run. He wasn't like a bum with him. So I'm just like I said, we talked about the Eagles secondary not giving up a lot of spike weeks of late. So maybe that would be a spot. And we've seen Obviously, Brian Thomas Jr. only had 2 catches last week. Neighbors only had 40 yards 2 weeks against them. Chase got there against the Eagles with that touchdown, but he only had 9 for 54 in that game. So I think at his price, the odds that you're getting like a 30 burger are probably pretty thin.
You guys mentioned Hopkins in passing. Do we like him if he's super chalky? Like, is he somebody that has, I guess we saw it on Monday night. He has a ceiling, right? I guess, are we leaning in?
Cash, for cash, I don't have a problem with it. But
of course, yeah.
I think from a tournament perspective, if he ends up being really high owned, I will probably look elsewhere just out of, kind of respect of the Denver secondary. But I have no issues playing with him at his price at all. Like, we know he's an immensely talented player, and he's playing with the best quarterback in the NFL. Like, I mean, I think when he got traded, we talked about like this. He wasn't washed. He was leading the Titans in yards per out run when he got traded. Last year, he played good football. I definitely think he's a guy that is a good football player still. And if he's going to be that cheap tied to Mahomes.
He's 5'3" on DK. He should probably be like 7K. Like, what should he realistically be? 7K? Is that about 6'5"? Yeah.
Looking at DraftKings, kind of just like where they're. Well, he definitely should be more than Josh Downs.
Mooney is 6'5". Downs is 6'2". Pickens is 6'8". Harrison 6'4".
I mean, DJ Moore is still 6'3". He definitely should be there. Marvin Harrison, they can't keep pricing him low enough.
It's his cheapest price of the year, Harrison, and still, I'm not sure if I want to play him. Right?
No,
it feels like Hopkins is like 1.5K too cheap on DK, but. Yeah, we'll see.
It's interesting. Right. DraftKings bumped George Pickens up pretty significantly this week. Like, he's the same price as Debo, which is a move.
That game nearly made the cut. It's very volatile, but that game almost made it.
Yeah, that game I could see that game going over too.
Yeah.
John, who's your
favorite player? I like Pickens I like Pickens on FanDuel, but I don't love that price on DraftKings.
Rich, you got a favorite player, John?
Yeah, Rich actually touched on it. The Noah Brown value. That's someone I wrote up in the waiver wire too, just because like even if you look at over the last month since Noah Brown returned from injury initially, it's not just the route participation, but Terry McLaurin in that time still can obviously get there, but he's peaked at a 24% target share at his high point in those 4 games. Noah Brown, even last week, has been 31.5% of the team's targets. He was over 24% in another game. Like, it's sporadic now with Brown playing that second wide receiver role that he should have had the entire time over Luke McCaffrey.
Yeah, not a lot of competition there, right? Like you said, McCaffrey, Zacchaeus, Diami. All right.
I mean, it's Wednesday right now, but I think just looking, I just pulled up, the optimized the lineup HQ at RotoGrinders, which you can check out. I think based on projected ownership on Wednesday, that Deebo Samuel is by far my favorite wide receiver.
How much? Yeah, 6'9". Yeah, it says 10% right now, 9% right now. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, grain of salt, of course. But I if you could tell me I'm getting 9% Deebo, sure, absolutely.
And you can
I love that
you
call.
can play them all with Purdy and just leave Christian McCaffrey off the board and just hope for the best.
I'm really curious. Like, I think people are excited to play CMC, and maybe he gets overplayed just because he's a sexy name. And like when he's at his best, he's 9.5, 10K on DK and worth it, right?
Yeah.
So at least DK makes it a little more tempting at 8K.
It's real tough. I mean, you look at those running backs on DraftKings, he's sandwiched around.
I know.
I mean, those guys are all in really good spots. I mean, we made the case for Breece Hall. We made the case for Bijan Robinson. We made the case for Alvin Kamara. You have Saquon. Like, he has it's not like he has no competition there.
Like, Alvin Kamara, I think I just like him better than McCaffrey this week with the unknowns involved with CMC.
Kamara with 38 opportunities last week. I know you kind of ran it down, Rich, but that is really bonkers. 29 rushing attempts and the 9 balls thrown his way, caught 6 of them. Like you said, did not get a touchdown and still put up over 30 fantasy points on DK, which is it's hard to do. It's hard to do.
There can't be many of those games.
No, I would imagine it doesn't happen very often. Okay. Tight ends. John, what do we got?
We have Travis Kelce, because if you just look at these games without Rashee Rice, even this past week with DeAndre Hopkins, I know everyone sees like the 13, 14 catches. Oh yeah, Travis Kelce. That's why you're talking about him, but he hasn't dipped below a 20% target share in any of these games without Rashee Rice. Like they have to use him now, and they continue peppering him so much so that he's probably even the tight end one over Brock Bowers the rest of the way, since we've seen Bowers splits now with Jacoby Myers in the 4 games without Devontae Adams. And then I have no other cheapies. We talked about Cade Otton, TJ Hawkinson, if you want to get to a touchdown or bust double stack strictly through the air with Darnold. But other than that, yeah, I don't have any other tight end options, honestly.
I'm seeing Disley hit a lot of stuff. I'm seeing Disley, Kelce. It kind of speaks to the slate right
doubles.
Now as doubles, which is like, who likes the tight end and the flex? It's kind of gross. But yeah, that's just kind of where we're at right now.
Listen, if you're going to do that, then the ultimate flex is Taysom. He is the flex.
He's the value.
He actually is a flex. Yeah, like he's like literally the only one that actually is the flex player.
Jose Akendo of the NFL.
Oh, wow, that is a hell of a pull. Jose Akendo, who famously played. He played all over the place, but
he played all 9 positions one season, right?
In one game. In one game,
was it one game?
All 9 positions. Yeah, I mean they kind of goofed around and had some fun, and they had him catch an inning. But yeah, like, I think the game was over or was either playing. I don't remember the situation. But I don't think it's ever happened before or after. But like he has played all 9 positions.
Real ones.
This is for the Cardinals back in like 1985 or something.
Did he manager? Was he a manager somewhere too recently?
I don't recall.
My recent baseball knowledge is not that strong. So
I don't think so. If he has, I missed it.
I didn't know.
I
got one of those guys.
I'm good. I'm good with Taysom, definitely, for all the reasons we discussed. Will Disley, I think you missed me though. It's not like these other cheap 3K guys we've depended on the past couple of weeks. Like even the role is pretty uncertain with Quentin Johnston back. We saw his target share dip. Hayden Hurst could play in more snaps in his second game back from injury too. So I think it's pretty questionable for Disley, honestly.
They ran a lot more 11 personnel with Quentin Johnston coming back last week. So like, I think his route rate dropped to like 65%, even though he was still ahead of Hayden Hurst because they just ran a lot more wide receiver stuff.
Chat's talking about how double tight end smashed a lot last year.
Mm-hmm.
It probably smashed a couple times this year too. Like we've had some slates, last week, with Kaseki and somebody else, for sure that you could have got there that way.
It became clear by like Sunday morning, you couldn't play Jalen Coker in large field because everyone was playing him. And it's like, okay, I guess I literally have to get off of him everywhere.
I moved to Parker Washington. I thought that was the smart thing to do. But
he didn't do like terrible either. Just like the ceiling of that offense is very questionable.
And that was also like kind of a later game. And some people thought, I guess it wasn't official that Gabe Davis was in or out.
Sure. Right.
I thought I was being cute about it, but yeah, I know he was doubtful. But
I mean, he did lead the team in receiving yards, right?
Well, what was the number though?
I think it's like 41.
Exactly.
So like it's so terrible, but
sunshine. Trevor Lawrence.
I got 2 more guys though. Obviously, I'm a co-sign Kelce. Obviously, if you have the salary, Hunter Henry to we're going another guy in that game.
Play that stupid game.
But
he's been a tight end 1 in all 3 of Drake May's full games. He's caught 19 of 23 targets from Drake May with a touchdown. The Bears have been a little softer to tight ends against wide receivers too. 8 yards per target to tight ends. It's 21st in the NFL. And then I don't really have a lot of objective rationale behind this one, but Juwan Johnson, like maybe just because he is a receiver, like he ran 24 routes last week. If you're going to play one of those guys, and if we're all playing Taysom and Kamara, like maybe he's just a dude. Like he was on the field a lot. Like, so maybe he just deserves a look. I don't know. That's really it.
Let's move. Somebody mentioned what Buffalo is in a good spot as far as their tight ends. They're trying to tout Kincaid, but like, is he even a tight? Does he line up like a tight end? I don't think he's not really a tight end, right? Or is he?
The thing about Kincaid is, where are you getting, like, for his price, like what kind of ceiling are we hoping for, right? Like he has 1 week higher this season than tight end 10. He's averaging 36 yards per game. He also is 21st in routes run per game amongst tight ends. And because we're talking about like this Bills Colts game, and if the Bills are ahead, we've seen what Joe Brady does. Like you're going to see a lot of James Cook. You're going to see a lot of Ray Davis. It's just I think his price now. If he was 4K again, like he was that week where it was fun to play him, but his price, I just don't see the upside.
And Buffalo's probably going to be ahead, right? I mean, you never really know how these things play out, but it seems like a fair assumption.
I don't hate the spot and like the rationale if no Keon Coleman. The thing about the Bills is they play all these guys, right? Like nobody's on the field for like 85+% of the dropbacks. They rotate all of these guys, and it's very frustrating.
I have a NBA brain still, and they're like the Golden State Warriors. If you play basketball too, like the Warriors play like 10, 11, 12 dudes, 28 minutes. No more, no less. Well, not exactly, but and it's just hard to play anybody outside of Steph, I guess, is Josh Allen in this scenario. Okay. I think that's it for the week. Anything else here, boys, as far as tight ends or anything else you want to note?
Also, one other note, I have a fun note on that game too, as well. Because it's the Colts, and we always talk about, Gus Bradley. Josh Allen has not thrown a touchdown pass against zone coverage yet this season.
Okay.
kind of a weird stat. This was like, it's kind of funny. Every single one of his touchdowns are against man coverage.
And defenses know this, right? Like you're not the only one that has this.
You would assume. I mean, I'm just some peon in his office. You're not. I'm not saying that as a reason to fade Josh Allen. It's just a funny note that I was like, oh, what the hell is this?
You're not just some peon though. People are referencing your tweets. They're butchering your name, but they are referencing your tweets. Hribar, what did that dude call you on the podcast? He was trying to give you a shout out. Said you're a good follow, but
maybe a bar. I don't know.
Oh yeah, he said he pronounced you a bar. You're Muslim now.
What is the weirdest way you've heard your last name pronounced?
Oh yeah, I mean Hribar, anything with the H, right? And it's not their fault. I mean, I always tell people I didn't get to pick it out. What are you gonna do? But I've heard it all.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do with it when I first saw it. I think I had to Google. I saw, let me see this person speak somewhere else. I want to make sure I pronounce it correctly. Many years ago.
But it's just like the concrete, right? Like I said, I've tried to tell my wife to refer to me as Dick Steele, but it hasn't stuck.
We want to end on a high note. I think that's a perfect ending. As far as football, we gave the people an hour and 20 minutes or so. We're going to pivot and talk a little bit of movies. We're going to go ahead and bring on producer TJ. Rob should be lurking as well. I assume they're both going to pop on here in a second. John, we're done. We got nothing else here as far as the week. I imagine we're good to go.
I think that's about it for us.
All right, TJ, Rob, TJ, you're ghosting the whole time. I saw you in chat participating. Saints fan. You've had enough of Derek Carr. You're liking all Michael Thomas's tweets, I imagine.
Every single one. I've been very
brother
since before he even came to the Saints. So him coming to my favorite team was incredibly disappointing. And I've been on the Derek Carr hate train since his very first start.
got the same coach fired twice, which is pretty impressive. Shout out to him. Rob,
is the only quarterback that has lost to every single team in the NFL?
No, there's one more. I think he's got one more team. He's got to lose to the Raiders. I think that's the one. Is that right?
It is. They play too.
Raiders,
year.
Right? Yeah, I think he's got a chance to lose later on this season if he loses. Now, is he going to go for the record? Is he even going to play? I don't know.
I mean, who can lose a game though? Derek Carr or Antonio Pierce? Like this is a battle. This is quite a battle.
Does he get a loss if he doesn't play? Like he's just on the sideline? How does that officially work?
No, he has to start. He has to start.
He's got to play then. He's got to play that week for sure. And we got to root for the Raiders because has any quarterback ever lost to 32 teams before?
No, he actually has the record now at 31.
Okay. All right. Shout out to him.
I'm just hoping that Dennis Allen goes and coaches like the Saskatoon Succotashes and Derek Carr goes and plays for him. And
Derek Carr.
New head coaching quarterback of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I would cry. I haven't watched the game in 2 years, but I would still cry.
Is there still two teams in the CFL named the Rough Riders, or has one of them changed their name?
No, that hasn't been the case in a long time.
Okay. But once upon a time, that was the thing, right?
Yeah, well, because it was a thing because the CFL formed from like just different teams throughout Canada like a long time ago. And so there were, without these teams knowing who each other were, they were just both independently called the Rough Riders.
Okay, we fixed that once they're in the same league. It's easy. Flip a coin. I don't care who fixes it.
They did fix it.
independently both come up with the Rough Riders. But all right, shout out to the Saskatchewan. What Rough
Really
Riders?
like DMX. Just really like DMX.
Yeah.
Or was it Eisenhower? Who was the Rough Rider? Was it my
Teddy
history? I'm not a
Roosevelt,
history.
right?
Roosevelt. Oh, Roosevelt. All right, you got me. I'm not a history major. I'm busted. Okay, we're going to go ahead and talk about my movie. Shout out to Daigle. Daigle won this week. He's going to be recommending, spoiler, we already know what movie we're watching next week. The people are already excited about it. It is a sequel. It is a sequel of a movie we've already watched.
I know
this week.
We can. I was kind of joking about it, but we can do that too. That's okay. We'll talk about.
Oh, if you want to change it, you can change it. I thought you were being either way. Yeah, if you want to, by all means, it's your decision.
I'll get some options.
Fair enough. All right. The movie that I selected is Blue Ruin. I was telling the people I probably picked a bad week. It's not the happiest movie. It's not an upper. It's not a happy watch. I'll go ahead and give the description in the, let's see, what do you want, the IMDb description or the Rotten Tomatoes description? Which one? Let's give the IMDb description. A mysterious outsider's quiet life is turned upside down when he returns to his childhood home to carry out an act of vengeance. Proving himself an amateur assassin, he winds up in a brutal fight to protect his estranged family. I'll just say this, by the way, if you haven't watched it yet, well, maybe you shouldn't listen to this if you haven't watched it and you're actually interested. But like, this is not a movie for those that are like working and watching a movie at the same time, or like looking down on your laptop or you're playing on your phone. I know TJ slid into my DMs and he told me like in the middle of watch this movie stinks. And I imagine that's because TJ is probably doing work on something else. You know, because there's no speaking for like chunks of this movie. Yeah. It is a slow burn. And there's like, it's slow. Something big happens about 15 minutes again. And then it's slow burn again until the end. But
definitely one of the slowest 90-minute movies I've ever seen.
Yeah. Like 30 minutes in, I was sure it was going to be an hour through. And I saw it was like 27 minutes. I was like, what the hell do you mean? And that's when I texted Dean.
I feel like I'm gonna be fighting against all you guys on this one. I feel like, but we'll see. I'm curious to see what Rob and Daigle have to say. But
so I said I had a story to share with this. I watched this one with my wife on Saturday, incorporated in her. So we've watched a couple of movies where either I knew she wouldn't be interested in, or like we had already seen or something. 10 minutes into the movie, because I didn't tell her anything about it. We just popped the movie in. 10 minutes in, and she's like, "This is a Dean movie, isn't it?" I was like, "You know it." I was like, "You know it." Yeah. I was like, "Absolutely." She wants to know if you're okay, Dean. My wife, genuinely, who you did meet her in Nashville a couple years ago. She wants to know if you're okay. Yeah. She wants me to ask if you're okay. Like, we want to use this, Dean. You're amongst friends. Like, are you all right?
It's a fair question. If you see the movies that I recommend, it is like Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. I think we watched last year on my recommendation. I have a certain genre that I probably focus on too much for this show. But yeah. Otherwise, did she stick around for the first 10 minutes? She stick around for the entire movie?
Oh no, we watched the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to give as far as your assessment before we throw it to somebody else?
I thought this movie was okay overall. I had very similar problems, which I'll get to in a second, a couple of nits to pick, but like similar to Rebel Ridge. Well, Rebel Ridge, and maybe it's just this director's thing from a writing stance, well, Rebel Ridge had a topic, the anti-violence, anti-weapons, but then had nothing to say about the topic. It brought up a topic, and this movie does something very similar. It brings up the concept of revenge, how that you won't even have fulfillment if you accomplish this revenge, but just does what every movie in this genre ends up doing. And the problem with this movie going that route versus something like we watched earlier this season in Sisu is Sisu established what type of movie it wanted it to be early on, and you can go along for that ride. This is a movie that wants to play the balancing act of being a movie that wants to be a lot smarter than it is, but has a character that literally never develops. He has no background. Nothing happens to him in the movie. And then he is fighting a bunch of people that we genuinely don't care about or haven't established them as even real villains. You're in like this just really blank space where there's just no substance in this movie for me.
I couldn't help but wonder, like, how many siblings are there? Like, who is he going after next? Because, like, I don't know this family well enough at all. They do the reveal that it was actually the dad. I don't give a damn who was the dad. Or did we know the dad already? I did find myself just quite bored throughout it. I am admittedly, the ADHD kicks in full force. I like a movie with dialogue. I like a movie that's plot heavy. That's why I do find myself enjoying a lot of movies that maybe aren't the best films, because as long as they fit that for me, I typically will get some type of enjoyment from it. But I kind of agree with Rich that they thought they were saying something, but they didn't really know how to say it. It kind of seemed like the ending was almost like supposed to be a little Romeo and Juliet-esque of like, if we all keep fighting each other, no one wins. And here's this child of the two families. He's gonna help us gain peace going forward. It was just very weird. I found myself bored throughout most of it.
Somebody, who's my only hope? Is it John or is it Rob? Who's going to be on my side here? I think Rob's in deep thought. Oh, go ahead, John.
I'll go first. I was laughing earlier because I saw Rob's face. I think I know what's coming, but we'll build it up. I'm not on your side though. It's okay. It's fine. I got through it. The first 10 minutes, I was the person who had it on in the background and was listening. And then I looked up and it was like, oh, this is one of those movies. Like I realized very quickly that I had to pay attention. I couldn't just put it on and then be listening while doing other things. So I sat down and watched it all. I felt like it peaked in the first 20 minutes whenever the family walked out of prison or picked up their person. Because I was like, oh, okay, this is telling a slow story now. Now I know this is this is who he's going to try to murder, probably because he killed a wife or family member, something like that. So we've got that far. And then the rest of the unveiling, it's kind of like what Rich and TJ said. There's not much substance there. I do think it tried to end on a high note. Yes. Like The Road, almost Cormac McCarthy, allowing the kid to carry the torch through the woods as everyone else dies around him. But it just kind of missed the mark for me, honestly, in the end.
Did you also not like There Will Be Blood because there wasn't talking for the first 10 minutes?
No, I'm not saying that's not why I liked it. I'm saying that's why I stopped what I was doing, because I realized, oh, I need to actually watch this movie. I love There Will Be Blood.
I mean, we all like Sisu, which had no talk, had no dialogue, earlier in the season. It established what movie it wanted to be early on, and you could go along for the ride. And you literally cared about the dudes he was still killing in that movie. These people that he's going after, you're just indifferent. You're like, well, are they actual villains? So what did they do? We don't really know.
The most compelled I was when he had the gun on the brother in the trunk, and they were just having awesome. That conversation. That was my favorite part of the movie.
Well, and also the shot out of nowhere. I mean, if nothing else, Rob's gonna.
That was hilarious. That was genuinely hilarious when his friend shot that guy in the face. I burst out laughing.
And it was cool because they did the movie where you actually heard the gunshot and then the.
Well, I think you heard a miss too, right? Wasn't there a miss? He missed the first shot and the second shot he got him, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Which typically you don't see that very often either. And I thought it was a pretty cool visual too. By the way, the budget for this movie, not that we should grade on this isn't like gymnastics, whatever. There's but the budget. $420,000. Come on.
I kind of thought it's a little student movie-esque, and I don't mean that as an insult, but a very much my first movie, not a lot of resources involved. Rob, I don't think this was terrible by any means. I was just kind of bored. I don't think it was a really bad movie. It just wasn't for me, and I don't think it was great.
Yeah, I did not think it was terrible in any way. It definitely though did not hit as you were describing you felt at the end.
Sometimes you just have to sit there and let people be wrong for a while, Dean. And that's what I was doing. I was letting Rich and TJ and Daigle be completely wrong about this movie. The one thing that they do have right is they did need to establish that family just a little bit more, because one of the things this movie does the best is the reveal that the killer was the father of the family. You actually get a lot of character development on that father and who that person was as a father without ever even meeting him, which I actually enjoyed as part of a character build for someone that you never even meet in this movie because he's dead, allowing his children to take the fall for him in that. And it just shows you how much of a scumbag the dad was, but how devoted his family was to him overall. So if you had developed,
but yeah.
Okay. So you're going to let your healthy young son take the fall for you for a murder so that you can stay out and.
I'm not saying he's a great guy. That was the
Like,
excuse they gave.
Your son's gonna have this murder charge on his record for the rest of his life because you want to spend your last year in your lounging chair instead of
Beverly Hill. He wants to watch the Beverly Hillbillies or whatever he was into. He said he wants to watch his favorite TV shows basically in his dying years.
But that's the point, right? Like, so we understand who this guy is as a father and why he's a scumbag. And even though he did what he didn't do it out of love. He did it because he's a scumbag and he doesn't actually care about his family because he's shown that he doesn't care about his family. I think that part of this movie, to disagree with the other guys, is I wanted to know less because you're discovering it with the character as he moves through the movie. Like that is part of the plot. Like, yes, maybe develop those other characters a little bit, but you're unraveling a little bit more and he's changing emotionally throughout the movie. You see it, how determined he is. He's scared as he goes through this movie. Then he starts to learn shit and realize like, oh, maybe I did mess up. Right. Like, and even though he messed up, he's so pot committed at this point because even he has to protect his sister. And you see that emotional change from him throughout the entire film. I enjoyed it from that aspect. I enjoyed that he did things wrong. Like he wasn't perfect at this. He was messing up left and right. There was a few things that I'm like, the flashlight thing really bothered me because I'm like, yeah, he's messing up, but like leaving that flashlight on and crawling with it seems bad overall, like that you would figure out as a regular person. But like he's messing up left and right. He messes up for the first murder. He stabs the tire. He loses his keys. Like this is what a normal person would do. That's
well, no, a normal person would not just say I could pick up a gun and think I'm justifying my cause.
Right. Well, but he can't do it is the point. Like that's part of but he's not good at it when he does make that decision.
That's kind of what I mean. Sorry, you finish.
So like you're taking this journey with this guy. It's a movie because he has to do something that a normal person wouldn't do. That's kill the person that killed his parents. That's not a typical response for the most part. So we're following that journey of a normal person going, well, a normal, like untrained killer go through that process. And I enjoyed it I'm not saying it's a perfect movie by any means, but I thought it was a perfectly fine 90-minute movie. Didn't overextend its welcome, in my opinion. It hit the number that it should in terms of length on the head. There were some really compelling scenes in this. I thought the ending was fine. I thought that him repeating the keys are in the car was his way of making amends throughout the movie to get that kid out of there so that this does stop. I don't know. I thought it was a good movie. I don't think it was bad by any means.
I think that was to your point on, they were showing us a lot of stuff and of like what he was going through and him screwing up. And this was just close to a regular guy going on a revenge murder spree. Like what if John Wick was just a dude that had no training whatsoever? But I felt like they leaned too far into that for me. And I just didn't really care about what happened to him. Like if he lost and he got shot, well, okay, that's fine. And from my point, I didn't get any investment into the character. But the other part was, and again, why I don't think this was terrible by any means, but just not for me. I don't really care about seeing him like dig stuff out of his leg and going through this like terrible like blood loss of how a guy with no training would deal through it. It's like they really focus on his strife as opposed to the overarching story and like what he like his specific point of view of what he is going through. And I just didn't really care about it.
I also thought an interesting angle was like typically these revenge kind of stories, like the ending would have been what happened 15 minutes in when he kills the guy who killed his family. Right. And that's kind of sort of the beginning, right? And then this focuses on the aftermath of like what are the repercussions are. And like, oh wait, now I have to deal with them coming after my family. And like, okay, I guess I have to kill this entire family, otherwise they're going to kill my family. And I thought that was, it's about a typical revenge story would have ended. Of course, they wouldn't have ended after 15 minutes. Some of you guys might have liked that. It would have, that would have been the spot where they would have ended the movie. And I thought that was a clever way of like, well, let's deal with the fallout of that. This is
much better than his other movie. I don't even think it's particularly close, to be honest.
Yeah, the reason why we picked it's the same director that did Well, Green Room, which no, we haven't talked about just yet, which is pretty interesting as well. And what was the movie from? What was the name of the? You referenced it a couple times, right? There you go, Rebel Ridge, which we watched earlier this year, and I agree. I think it's better than Rebel Ridge as well, which I think is much more flawed. Have we seen this anywhere else, by the way?
Now we got this out of the way. Let's talk about, are you allowed to order wine at a diner? So when he has like his, like clearly what's about to be like his last meal, he goes to a diner, and now it's whatever. You go to a diner, he was a homeless guy at the end of the movie. He's feeling good. It's about to be a great meal. But he had a cup of wine at this diner, and I just couldn't get past like what do you think he was getting there? And is it okay to like go to Denny's and order wine, which Denny's doesn't have wine, but you get what I'm saying.
It was the whole meal at the diner, right? It's like he's having this like he went to the diner for the expensive steak dinner and wine. Like it's been
a while since he's had such things, so that was a treat for him.
Yeah, they probably aren't. They probably have the
context. The diner wine.
They probably have the Sells All diner in that location because it's probably the one restaurant that all of these houses that are 20 acres of land apart from each other have access to.
I mean, the words of Rob Thomas, sometimes a little bit of something's better than nothing from Matchbox 20. And like, look, if he's never had wine or hasn't had wine in so many years, like box wine, whatever it is, whatever they're throwing in, whatever it comes out of.
Remove yourself from the movie. And I'm asking you guys as like human beings, when is it acceptable to order diner wine?
No.
I think there's other. Never. I don't know.
You're asking Daigle's a guy that ate a sandwich that was sitting on his
That's true.
For 3 days.
Well, it's not that. Okay, hold on. It was like 3 hours, not 3 days. I ate a chicken burrito from Costco. I forgot about the sun coming through the window. And 2, I also have ordered coffee from Buffalo Wild Wings, something else no one else has done, nor should that. They do have coffee, and sometimes you need it when you live in LA and it's 10 a.m. football and you were out the night before. But as you can imagine, Buffalo Wild Wings coffee tastes exactly as you would expect. There are no surprises in that coffee. So do not suggest doing that either.
Not known for their coffee for sure. Okay. Shall we go? Is there anything we should say as far as the movie?
The other thing too, I just want to bring up is at the end of the movie, he guts the house of all the weapons. What's the practicality of having that gun underneath the folding chair, like the fold out of that chair? Like how long has that thing been there? Like just for the movie purposes, it's there. But like, what the hell, man? Like,
clearly for when other people are taking revenge on your family.
Or they could have set it up after this started, right? Like they're in the middle of this and they didn't kill him, so maybe they were like setting it up at that point. I don't know. Just trying to apply some practicality behind it.
If anybody is going to do that, though, this is the kind of family that does it, that has like 50 or 60 or 100, I didn't count the amount of guns they have available. They would have them at within arm's length, no matter what position you happen to be in.
All you have to say, Dean, is if it's somebody that will bury their father in the backyard, then yes, they can probably put their gun underneath the couch.
There you go. Jeff Foxworthy somewhere has got a joke for this, I'm sure. But all right. I think, are we ready to play a little IMDb game, a little Rotten Tomatoes game, put a score on it as well? Anything else you want to say as far as this movie? All right. That's a no. Rich, you're going to go first. You're going to give me the IMDb score of Blue Ruin.
I'll say 6.8.
Okay, so you think it's going to be higher than you actually believe it is. Like,
oh yeah, this feels like a movie, like the kind of like people like this type of movie.
Okay, all right.
I think this is a critic. This is a critic type of movie, and there's a reason this dude got to make more movies. If you're telling me this was early in his career for $400,000, I think it was probably well received.
TJ, IMDb, 1 through 10.
I'll go 6.3.
Daigle?
7.
Rob?
5.7.
Oh, I thought you were going to price us right him and go like 7-1. 7-1 was the answer. 7-1. Daigle was the winner. All right, 7-1 out of 10, which is really strong, as Rich kind of alluded to. That's a pretty strong score for IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes, we have the critics, 142 critics and over 10,000 audience members, I suppose, have given it a score as well. Rob, you're going to go first. Give me the critics and the audience for Blue Ruin.
Okay, critics are going to be 82%, audience 69%.
John?
I was going to go critics 71, audience 61.
TJ?
I saw the critics on Rotten Tomatoes when I rented it on Apple TV was the only place I could get it, and it has it like listed on the advertisement, so I won't guess that. But I'll go 75% audience.
TJ is an honorable man for fessing up. Rich?
See, so I feel like this is the type of movie that the only people that are reviewing it are people that like it. Like,
it's probably about right.
You know what I mean? That's like this isn't like it's not like a widespread movie. Like a lot of people know. I feel like if there are reviews for this movie, it's people that like are trying to push it.
10,000.
Also, I believe that this, from the Rotten Tomato stance, like to me, from like a number stance, this is like a 6. And you know, my rule on Rotten Tomatoes is like if it's a 6, everyone's gonna bang it with the thumb up. So I think the score is gonna be high for those two reasons. So
I love the game theory analysis.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like something like 90% critics and like 85% for audience.
142 critics, 96% from the critics, 96%. Audience, 79%, which I think Rich had the highest.
I overshot it too. Overshot it.
Yeah, everybody overshot it, but I think you were the closest.
I had 75.
75. My bad. Yeah, okay, there you go, TJ. That's right. You nailed it. So Rich gets a point, and we should keep score retroactively. Somebody go through and listen to all the previous
about the journey
9 weeks. All right, let's give it a score, and then let's go ahead and move on to John's movie. Rob, do you want to give me a score first?
Yeah, I got 3 out of 5.
3. Okay, TJ.
I have Kraven the Hunter as my rating. It's you know, a lot of violence, a lot of rage, a lot of revenge. For what it is, I don't think it's bad by any means, but not a movie for me, and not a lot of substance to what they're doing. For what it's worth, I think you can have Kraven with substance. I've just seen the first 20 minutes of this new Kraven the Hunter movie, and a lot of violence, not a lot of substance.
I just gave a quick Google. Russell Crowe, huh? Okay. All right.
Aaron Taylor Johnson was at New York Comic Con, like introducing it on stage, and so we got to watch the first 20 minutes, and it was more interesting than what I was expecting. But like these Sony Spider-Man universe movies without Spider-Man, just they don't quite hit.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what it was. I didn't know Kraven the Hunter is in the Spider-Man world. Maybe that's just me. I didn't know that.
Kraven's Last Hunt is a great story.
John, you got a wrestler?
I do. A little bit gritty, a little bit of a dirty movie in the backwoods. And so we're going to the most recent Wyatt family, but it's not good enough to be the great Bray Wyatt. We can't go there with this movie. It's not good enough to be Luke Harper, who went on to AEW and did his own thing. So this movie has to be Eric Rowan for my grade.
Does Rob approve? That's the most important thing. Is Rob approve this wrestler choice?
Rowan's good. I probably would have Luke Harpered it if we were going Wyatt family.
I love it. This is my favorite bit.
I love this bit.
Could have done the Skinner if we wanted to go earlier.
Rich, you got a tight end?
I do. So, I mean, I think this movie is largely a 40-degree day. Not a lot to it, but it's fine. And I think that there's a tight end that had a lengthy career, over 10 years, but never made a Pro Bowl. Was a fine player. Had a couple moments like this movie has. And it's Brent Selleck.
Brent Selleck.
Philadelphia Eagle, right? Is that the first team?
Philadelphia Eagle, Brent Selleck. I believe he played his whole career at the Eagles as well. Might be wrong.
There you go.
He might have went somewhere else.
I had a funny moment this week that reminded me of Rich's bit with the tight ends because like a week ago, I responded to some Twitter thread that was like, name a random running back you thought of. And like the whole thing, like the first 3 responses were just like him getting mad at people of like, no, please stop naming this Pro Bowl running back from like 4 years ago. We're looking for random here. Don't just give me like this shit. And so I said Kenton Keith, who I don't know if any of you remember Kenton Keith.
You should have used Mark Walton because we had a Mark Walton conversation last week.
He was with the Colts when Peyton Manning was there, but he was like the first running back I grew up watching with the Saskatchewan Roughriders that I was like, why the hell is this dude in the CFL? Like, he's so good. He does not deserve to be here. And then he ended up going with the Colts. But I respond, Kenton Keith. And then literally yesterday, I'm going through my Twitter and I see Kenton Keith liked your reply, and I go to it, and it was actually him. I didn't tag him.
Hell yes. Searching his name,
Kenton Keith. Searching his name, saw it come up there. He was going through and you liked it on Twitter.
Shout out to Kenton Keith.
Michael Thomas used to do that all the time.
Yes.
The second Michael Thomas drop of the show, he used to go through, like, if you just like tweeted a fantasy stat or something about him, like he would just like go back and like retweet it or like do and like go through and heart your stuff.
Who was the one that got Levitan that kind of searched for his name? I think it was a running back, maybe. It was famous like a year or two ago. I don't recall now. I'm drawing a block. I'm sure he would know. But yeah,
you'd also get random that you would find out had you blocked, and you'd be like, why does Jericho Cotchery have me blocked? And it's because like you tweeted some stat about him that was like negative, and he was like, fuck this.
Reggie Miller has me blocked because I once called up like biased announcing.
My random block is R-Truth blocked me like 15 years ago. Yeah.
What did you say?
I looked back and it wasn't even anything like overly bad. It was just I didn't like something in a match or something. It wasn't even like Dickhead Rob coming out. I was like, wow, that's a weird reason to block me.
It's like I tell my kids, if you're trying to go on the internet and look for something negative about you, you can find it. Oh, yeah. So like these people that search, like I'll never type my name into a search engine. Like there is zero chance.
There's probably a Reddit forum. This Rich Hribar, terrible things.
Yeah.
Let us know. Let us know in the comment section. Give us your most random person that has blocked you. Maybe like Daigle has blocked you. Maybe when somebody on the show has you blocked. I don't know. Maybe TJ.
I don't see many people who have blocked me, but I've like Gina Carano blocked me. That one was a funny time.
MMA actress,
MMA fighter / former actor.
I don't give people the enjoyment of blocking them. I mute them so they can scream into the ether. Yeah.
Dean, what's your score? You haven't given your score.
Oh, I got to give it a. Let's see. I score 1 to 100. Of course, that's the way you're supposed to do it. I'm going to say a 75. I'm going to give it a 75 out of 100. I'm a big fan of this movie. We have to figure out what Daigle's movie is going forward.
Yeah.
And do not let us know in chat. But I want to give me in the comment section. I want to read the random. I'm always curious the random block stories. Most random person. Tell me why if you think you know why. And maybe we'll read out. We'll shout out a couple of them next week if we get some good ones. Check it. Go ahead and throw them in the YouTube. Daigle, we were discussing, or you're throwing out possibly continuing Blade as a thing. Is that going to continue? Have you had second thoughts?
I can let everyone pick, but I'm just going to grasp on movies that we continue talking about on this show. So one option out of 3 is Blade 2, which from what I remember, just as good as Blade 1. And you like Blade 1, Dean, so maybe we can continue that. We have constantly mentioned wolves on this show, not only because it's mispronounced, but also it seems good, even though no one talks about it. So I think knocking out wolves off our list would also be good. And then the third one is a more recent one, just because I kind of want to watch it. So I was like, I don't know, maybe the guys want to watch it too. The Substance with Demi Moore.
Hells yeah.
I want to watch that.
It's, I believe it just released on Amazon Prime, and it seems like Requiem for a Dream in 2024 with Demi Moore. So I kind of want to go that direction.
Yeah.
I've heard really good things, and supposedly it's like bonkers and like Requiem for a Dream. Not something you watch. That's one of those like what's the movie? Like, what's the best movie that you never want to watch again? It's like Requiem for a Dream.
That might be that one. Yeah.
It's like that's a great movie. I don't know if I ever want to watch that again, though.
Shutter Island.
It's a good answer. I think you watched that twice, right?
Yeah, I've seen it twice, though. And I just from the perspective of knowing the reveal, and then one free, and I don't need to see it again.
I go walk the hospital sometimes that place was filmed at or used, Medfield State Hospital. So yeah, it's pretty cool. When Dreams May Come is the movie I think of that you don't want to watch again.
Is that Robin
guys are-
Williams?
Yeah, it's like
Never
a really
saw it.
dark, sad
good?
movie.
Oh yeah, I remember that movie.
Yeah, super. Like you watch it once, you're like,
Yeah.
man, I don't want to watch this movie again. It was
Is it even
good.
sadder knowing how his life ended? Or no, I don't
It
know the
might
story.
actually, maybe, yeah, because I've never thought of it that way, but yeah,
Sorry.
it actually might be.
Rob, that's how I feel a little bit. I mean, I've still watched it probably 5+ times, but that's how I feel a little bit about Logan, where I think it's such an incredibly good comic book movie, but it's a tough rewatch.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that too.
Rich, did you want to watch The Substance? I think myself and Rob
listen,
got excited about it.
I adhere to the rules of the game. Daigle won. He should get to pick the movie.
I
But
think
he's yielding.
everyone applauded when I said The Substance. So let's just go ahead and knock out The Substance together.
Or Blade the TV show.
The whole
entire
series.
I will say this. Because we watched Blade, I watched the other two that weekend.
So I watched the other two as well. I didn't tell anybody. Trinity still sucks.
But fun.
Fun,
I think it's fun. Like I'm not saying it's a
dumb
good
fun.
movie,
Yeah.
but it's dumb fun.
Yeah, I went down the
Is that the
rabbit
Triple H
hole of
one?
like reading about those movies too, and like what went wrong. Obviously, with the Snipes coming back. Spoiler alert for those who are waiting to watch Deadpool. But and then like because Del Toro was gonna do the third movie, and then got Hellboy and passed, and then they like that movie had like a bunch of production hell. The third movie, but hearing some of the stories about like how like Wesley Snipes just like wouldn't talk to anyone and like locked himself in his trailer. Like didn't communicate with anybody was really funny.
Amazing.
It's like, oh yeah.
All right. So next week, if you guys want to watch along, watch The Substance. We'll be talking about it next week. Of course, week 11 as well. Do hit that like button on your way out if you're still hanging with us. And again, let us know in chat somebody who's blocked you, the most random person that's blocked you, and why, if you know why. John Daigle established the run. Rich Hribar, Sharp Football Analysis. TJ Zwarich, RotoGrinders, Agents of Fandom. Rob, Hometown Ghost Stories. Spike Week. Dean, RotoGrinders. Win something this week. Week 11. We're out of here. Nope, that's week 10. We'll cut it in post. Holler.